Action. We're doing this. A new little, cool little different setup. We're trying to do this differently. We're trying to mix it up. I'm also, for anyone that's on YT, I'm also on TT. So TT and YT, but some talking topics for today. I had a few questions, and someone mentioned music journey. I guess, do you want to know about, do you want to know about how I got into music? So long story short, my dad was in the music industry. He wasn't really in the industry. I guess he was. But music was never, and some of you guys have heard this story, but I know it's been amazing. There's been so many new people coming in, and a lot of people do ask this question, so I appreciate you bringing this topic up. My dad was always a musician. When I was a baby, my mom would bring me around into all the clubs that he would be playing in. I was probably too young to be in any of the clubs, but shout out mom. And yeah, even growing up, like as a baby and then as a kid, sports, like physical fitness, that's probably why you hear me talk a lot about gym and harping on certain things, but music was never in the cards for me, at least what I told myself. Like I never thought that I'd want to do music. Sometimes when things are so close to you, you tend to neglect, I guess, the idea that you could also do that. Or maybe it was just so close to me, I was so used to him doing it. He was working 24/7. He was always away from the house. And so shout out Ma. I love my, anybody that's seen some of the videos of my mom and my dad at this point, they're both phenomenal, amazing. I love my parents. I'm super grateful for them. One thing that they definitely always were was just supportive, I guess, of my dreams and anything that I really wanted to do. And so it wasn't music, and it was never going to be music. That was never even a thought, honestly, for me. I was always like something sports or physical. Like that made the most sense to me. It connected with me, and I was good at it. Like when we talk about talent, and I know a lot of you guys are being super sweet, but I have a weird take on the word talent. Just because music didn't come natural, like none of it came naturally to me. I wish that could be my story. I wish I could sit here and be like, yeah, all this. Like I just was born and I was good at what I did. Like any of this stuff, it's just not my story. And I talk a lot about this and why I don't really like talent, because I don't want other people to see anything that I do or I'm putting out, or even music that I'm making, and be like unmotivated, just thinking that it's just talent and that just happened for him and it'll never happen for them. And I want to make that point so much and so often, because that wasn't the case for me. It was just hours and hours. I talk about this all the time. Hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of being at your craft. I had no idea how to mix. Definitely, this is way before even singing. You know, I had no idea how to produce, how to mix, how to master, how to write, how to do anything with sound design. I didn't know, but I always say we live in the best time in the age. You know, we have the internet. You want to learn anything, go to YT Academy, YouTube Academy, and Google University, whatever. We have all that stuff, and we're very fortunate to be able to have those things as human beings here on earth. So it's like, okay, I'm going to use this as a tool, because I never was good at school. So going back to the beginning of my story, before I go off on a million different topics, I was never good at school, never made sense. Anything like sports, I said sports earlier, but sports, yes, I played soccer, lacrosse. I never played football, I don't think. I was traveling for snowboarding. So I didn't really, it sounds weird, I didn't really like team sports. I think I didn't like team sports, not for like a selfish factor. I just didn't, maybe some looking back, like not that I didn't want to like pass the ball or anything. I wanted it all to rely on me. When anything happened, I wanted the cause and the effect to be all because that was my choice and whatever the thing was. Plus, I think, and I'm not in the sports. I have nothing against sports. I don't watch any sports. I know nothing about sports. but maybe it just wasn't extreme enough. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could look at football and be like, that's pretty extreme, but this is my story, like this is anything that was like, oh, I could risk, I don't want to say risk my life, but like where it just feels like you're on the peak of the mountain and like you could make it or you couldn't. I love that in any aspect of physical activity, so that's why I gravitated towards like motocross, skateboarding, snowboarding, anything where it really felt like I was putting myself out there. And that when we talk about the word talent and anything like it, that came very naturally to me, unlike music, but we could go into that in a little bit. But that's how I started snowboarding. And my mom took me once to the mountains with my cousins. It was the first time we went to this like little Pocono mountains with my cousins, and she paid for an instructor or a teacher, coach, whatever. And he gave my mom back the money and was like, he's like, I don't know why he's in this coaching class. Like he knows how to snowboard. And so I think that was a sign maybe to my mom, and definitely maybe to me subconsciously though, I was so young. I was maybe to give a date. I mean, an age on it. I have no idea. 5 or 6 maybe. I don't know. My timeline's all over the place when it comes to when things started, but maybe 5 or 6. And so she took out another job. She worked at Penn State, and she took another job at the mountain, like serving food and whatnot, to be able to support me getting a lift pass, going to snowboard. So shout out Ma Dukes. Shout out all the supportive parents out there. That's like the whole journey of me being able to travel and the things that I'm about to get into would never have been possible if, she didn't sacrifice and do those things to allow me to explore, different aspects of things that I was interested in and good at. So shout out Mama Dukes. I love you. But so I started competing. So little by little, I started going to the mountain. Then I started riding for the mountain. The mountain was called Blue Mountain. It was up in the Poconos of Pennsylvania. And I started to get better and better. And then my mom, being there and working down there, started to talk to more people. My mom's sort of like me. I used to be, what's the, when you're outgoing, I used to be opposite of that. Like now I'm very outgoing. What's it called? Introvert. I used to be very introverted. Now I'm very extroverted, but it is funny. My mom's always been an extrovert. So shout out Mama Dukes. I'm a mama's boy. I love mama. And yeah, she started talking to people and they're like, hey, he's really good at this. If he really wants to take it to the next level and make this a real thing, like as far as a career, he needs to start competing. So I started to compete. And that was, to go into the topic of like, what is a lot of my story and all different aspects of things that I've tried and been interested in. Insecurities has been like number one, even this type of stuff. And I'm sure there's enough people in here that can validate what I'm saying. Even doing social media, that was a whole, and recently, not until this last year really did a lot of things really open up for me and change. And that's because I got out of my own way. I was in my way 99.9% of the time. So yeah, I started traveling and competing, and I was so insecure. Every time I'd have to compete, I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to mess up, and what are people going to think if I fall, if I do that? I just remember just getting I don't want to call it stage fright, but so much anxiety, so much anxiety around it. And I was really, and I understand people go through this, like I'll tell you my experience and why I was feeling that. I was really going through that, but I was the one creating that, right? And anytime I'm going to talk about stories, anyone that is new, anyone that's already here already knows, but anytime I talk about stories or things that are about my life or things that I went through, it's always going to loop around into what I wish I would have known or the transparency of the truth of how it really was, even if it's not the most easily accepted answer and things people really don't want to hear, right? But I was having a ton of anxiety that was built up in my head. I'm building this up, right? I understand I was young. I didn't know. That's all true. But I was building this up. What are people going to think? What is this? Oh my gosh, what if I fall? What if I make a mistake? What if all of those things that I just blurted out were all negative. It was never, oh my gosh, what if this is the best thing that could possibly happen to me? What if I make a great friend? What if right? It's just the way of thinking. And that would carry me up until I feel like a year ago, which is mind-blowing. Maybe like a year and a half, but to fully have that understanding and be honest with myself. But that's what I did, and I think a lot of that also helped me push myself, like putting myself into situations that I necessarily didn't want to be in, especially because my mom had sacrificed so much, you know. At that young of an age, I was also pretty hyper aware of that and the things that she was sacrificing. But that kind of forced me as well to like put myself in those situations and just do it. And I remembered it never felt good, but that's because I never allowed myself to experience the joy of any of it. So I did that. I competed, and with any sport, but definitely extreme sports as well, it just comes with the territory, right? It's injury. So it'd be a shorter list to tell you all the bones that I haven't broken, but the one that really put me out. So I did that probably from like 5. Let's just say it was 5, from 5 years old to almost 16, which is really not that long, I guess, in the spectrum of life, you know. But as a young person, kid, human, whatever, that's a huge period of time for a specific career that's going to break you into the next like level of whatever that is. And so I had one injury though that put me out. So around 15, 16 years old, I had the one injury that just took me out, and it was my lower back. I fractured my lower back, and I didn't know it at the time. Yes, snowboarding came so naturally, and it made sense, and it's all I wanted to do. I wasn't going to do anything else, right? Even in the period of snowboarding and competing and traveling, I wasn't going to do anything else. That was it. I wasn't going to work a day job. I don't even care. I'll stay on the top of a hill and live in a little cabin and just snowboard every single day and walk back up, you know, to the cabin. But the injury took me out. So I got very pessimistic and I was, you know, truth of the matter is I was hurt, right? Like I was, you know, I lost what was my purpose, you know, what I felt was my purpose here on planet Earth, and at a young age for sure. But I don't really like to go into like oh, well, it totally hurt me, like the easier, softer way. I'm not a big fan. That's not what helped me grow. But that is also the truth. Like it was very traumatic, and I did go through a lot, and I felt like I lost everything and all my reason for being here on planet Earth. So I got very pessimistic. I got thrown back into normal schooling. And mind you, when I traveled and was in snowboarding, we were like with a team, so they would have like traveling tutor or help with teachers. So I never went to school really. You know, I did when I was like way younger. I'd go whatever. I don't know the grades, but when I was really traveling, we had someone that went with us. So after my injury, I got thrown back into normal schooling. And yeah, I say I got the case of the F-its, like F this, F that. Just because I didn't want to do, like I was, if I can't do what I love and what I'm put on planet Earth for, and it wasn't my choice, right? I was injured, so it was outside of me. I didn't, and mind you, I was young, so I didn't obviously have the awareness and what I do now. But I got very upset, and I was like, well, I'm just going to do what I want, and I'm not going to be here for that long, you know? And it sounds very morbid, but that's what it was. You know, they talk about the 27 club. Like, unfortunately, like my mentality back then was that's the club that's the time period that I have, you know? And that's the way I looked at everything, which is so wild, just in contrast to now. But so I didn't do great in school. I ended up getting expelled. I was in and out of jail for and treatments and other things for the majority part of definitely all high school. None of it made sense. I didn't want to listen, and everything that other people were trying to tell me, I didn't want to hear because I knew the right way, right? Like, my way's the right way, and that's how it's always going to be. No one else knows what I'm going through, right? I don't know if anyone else could relate to that, but I'm also here to tell you, if you can relate to that, that is a lie that we tell ourselves. It's just an excuse that we give ourselves to allow ourselves to continue in the same circle over and over and over. And it's really just the circle of misery, because people talk about the comfortability of all of it, but isn't the comfortability of the life that you're living, isn't that actually so uncomfortable? But then it's ironic, because in order to break that pattern, you have to get comfortable getting uncomfortable. So, but that's, we can get into that, but there's so many levels to all of this, right? And I believe everyone's at a different. Someone said recently, I was on a podcast, and I was trying not to use the word levels, because I feel like levels, everyone's on a different level, which is true. But I feel like levels can be very competitive, and like one's better than the other. And I that's not what I believe, because again, a lot of the stuff that I went through, if I didn't go through those levels, I wouldn't have the newfound awareness that I do now, that is allowing me to continuously keep leveling up. So, but point being, I think I'm going to change the word level to chapters. Someone has said this recently. So everyone's at a different, if you look at this as a movie or a script or a book, like this is a video game. You create, this is all, like you create it. You wake up, you're the main character. I know a lot of you guys maybe hear me like pass over saying like this is a video game or a simulation, but it is. I mean, it truly is. And you are, just look at it as a movie. You are the character. How do you want to live? I understand the cards. Everyone's dealt a different deck of cards, right? But like, how do you play those cards, right? It's a game. I don't know much about poker, but I sure as heck have watched enough videos or people that I've been around. It's like, well, you could have like a really bad hand of cards and come up on top. And I think if you look at that in the spectrum of human beings and life, I think that's been proven time and time again, over and over, right? So it's just the excuses we create for ourselves. So back to the story, I was just lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I think I was like going to be a welder for a while, and then I was like, I love cars. I was like, maybe I'll work on cars, but I just didn't. My brain didn't work that way. I went to go do like a test. I don't even know if I got one of them tests right, or one of the questions right. I have no idea. My brain just didn't work that way as far as books. So shout out to mechanics and welders and all that. I feel like I was okay at welding, but I like to goof around, and that's not a job that you could do that. So, but I didn't purely, anything that I attempted to try. And again, you would think, well, music, it's like you look at yourself third person back on this story, and you're like, well, duh, music. Like that's what your dad does. He could teach you, but I didn't want to do that. I think I'd also seen so much of what it like caused, having an entrepreneur. My mom working a 9 to 5, and my dad being an entrepreneur in the sense of doing what he loved. I just saw so much like back and forth in the family. I think that I was just like, I don't want to do that. I was like, I just don't want to do that. So anyways, yeah, music didn't really come into the picture until the first time I kind of got out of my own way, which is ironically enough, but the first time I really got out of my own way, I didn't want to do anything. I was so used to just staying inside, and the things, people, places, and things that I was associating with were obviously keeping me in that same people, places, and things circle, until I had got in trouble for something, and I had got sent away, and I met someone, and they're like, hey, whenever you get done, come meet me in New York. And so I left, and I went back home. And the thing is, every time that I went through something in life, I don't know if anyone else could relate to this, but any time I went through something in life, I always wanted to go back home. Like I always wanted to go back to the same people, places, and things, that comfortability. But within that comfortability, like in that environment, I continuously kept doing the same thing, circling around and never achieving anything that I believe that I should be doing. So I went back home after that place and I called him. It was the one time I was like, oh, I was feeling it again. I was feeling it. It always feels good for like a couple days. Like you go back, it's like new routine. You're like, oh, feels good to be back in that comfortability for like a brief moment. And then it's all the same stuff, And so I just didn't want to feel like that. And so I called him. And he's like, whoa, we're going out to New York tonight, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, you have to come with us. And I was like, like just out of insecurities. I was like, it's going to be around people. And what are they going to say? What do I wear? I'd never gone out before. And I was maybe 17 at the time, 17, 18. And yeah, so I went out, I drove, I met him in New Jersey and then drove up to New York. And the second I walked in that club, the club was called Pacha. The second I walked in that club, I was like, I'm home. I was like, this is it. This is where I'm meant to be. This is where I'm meant to be. Like I don't know what it is in this industry or whatever this is, I have no idea, but this is what I want to do the rest of my life. I was like, if I could make people feel like how I'm feeling right now, I felt I felt like I'd never felt before, not even with snowboarding. I was like, oh my gosh, if I could just make people feel the way I feel right now, like this, you could do that for a living? I was like, if I could just do that, oh my gosh, how do I do it? So what slowly started to happen was I would go nonstop. Sometimes I would go 3 times a week up to New York and just go out and it's like, who could I meet? Who can I meet? How do I be involved in any of this? And so I met this one guy, and he's like, well, if you really want to do this thing, he's like, well, if you really want to do this thing, then you can't just DJ. Like if you just DJ, you're gonna hit a ceiling. You need to learn how to produce. And I was like, okay, yeah. Let's do that. I was like, how do I do it? He's like, well, it's like not his job, He's like, you have to figure it out. Like, and it wasn't as simple as like the internet now, which is funny, and not to try and date myself, because really it wasn't that long ago. But the internet has come such a long way in such a short amount of time. But yeah, we had YT and Google, so it pretty much was that. Like, how do I get involved in this, and how do I learn? What's a DAW, a digital audio workstation? How do I make any of this? And I became obsessed. And I'll tell you right here, just like I spoke about a little bit earlier, none of it made sense to me. None of it. So I don't want anyone. It's hot out here. I probably shouldn't have chose this seating position. But I don't want anybody out there to see what I do and not think that they're also capable of doing it. Because I do believe that. I do. Because I'm telling you, like, none of it made sense to me. None of it. I remember getting so frustrated. I tried Ableton, I think, first, because that was right when it kind of was really coming out, I feel like. And Ableton's a program, so is what I'm saying for anybody that doesn't know. And I tried that first, and it just didn't make sense. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many buttons. I was like, there's like school. Like I said, my brain didn't work like that with school. And I was like, oh God, like what have I got myself into? None of it made sense. I tried that. I tried Fruity Loops. I tried Pro Tools. I tried pretty much everything, Studio One, and until I came upon Logic, and this was the old Logic before it is what it is now. And I can't say it made sense, because it definitely didn't, but the layout with my brain made a little bit more sense, like the structure of it. And so I just fully sent it. I was just nonstop every day. It's as little as a human being could possibly sleep. I did. Like, that's what it was. That was my goal. So many times I'd be working on music, and then I'd fall asleep just working, and I'd wake up and I'd start working again. That's just what I was doing. And my parents would be like, you have to eat, you have to sleep. And I was like, no, you don't understand. But even when that had happened and I found my true purpose, man, I'll tell you, it's really, all of it's a balance. If I don't care if you love what you do, like if you don't have balance around it and like a healthy routine, and that's why I harp on this stuff so much, guys. Like none of that matters. It's all to the works. Like it's all irrelevant if you don't put that stuff first and you don't put yourself first. So and I'll get into that topic in a second, but yeah, I became obsessed, and that unbalanced routine really became my worst enemy. So yes, I started to get better. I mean, it took years, to be honest with you. Like before I even made a song that was like I was like, oh my gosh, this could be like a song on the radio. It took years. Like they all sounded so bad. And I'm fine with. I mean, I feel like that's most anybody that I know is like super successful in this industry. That's like their story. So I say that to share that with you. If it is something that you're going after, like don't be so hard on yourself. Have a balanced routine. Know that it's coming, in parallels with all the other things that I talk about. And enjoy the process. I think that's far and most important, is to enjoy whatever it is. If you're going after like being a nurse or getting a degree or law degree or whatever you want to do, like as much as you can enjoy the process, I'm telling you, for one, isn't that way better? It's like, why would I not rather enjoy the process? Yes, you have to study and you have to do all these things. Enjoy the process. Create like cool prizes and tricks for yourself. Like I used to talk about going to the gym. I used to love having that protein shake, but I wanted that protein shake so much midday that I'd be like, oh, I have to go to the gym, and then I get that reward. So it's just understanding yourself and going and putting these things and implementing them into your life so that you could slowly start to grow. Because it's not an overnight anything. I mean, it's where they say 10 years of overnight success, It really wasn't until my 10th year, which is so bananas. But it really wasn't until my 10th year that anything really started to happen, which is mind-blowing. Which is really mind-blowing. It's really not, though. I think if I were to put myself in my shoes back then and someone was like, okay, like 10 years left, I don't know what my reaction would have been. I think I still just would have been like, all right, well, it's going to happen. I already knew it was going to happen. So anyways, I started to get that, and then through music, I went back and forth. There were times throughout, once I started really making music, that I just didn't want to do it anymore. I became so overwhelmed with all of it and nothing moving forward, and all the little pieces. Like shout out to all independent artists out there that are really doing their thing, because it is not like I make a song, mind you, all the things just to make a song by yourself. I'm not talking about involving other people, but now mind you, you could also involve other people. That's totally chill. There's nothing wrong with that. My story is just that I didn't want to rely on other people. Again, it probably goes back to, and now I'm like realizing a lot of this now in real time too. Probably goes back to like sports. I just didn't want to rely on other people. If something happened, I wanted it to be on me, and then if something positive came from the work that I put in, I wanted to fully experience that. So I think that's how it translated to music. I was like, I'm going to learn how to mix, master, produce, sound design, engineer, sing, write. I'm going to do all of it so that I could rely. I don't have to. I think it was a lot of, especially because once I got caught up with stuff after high school or in high school, really, I lost a lot of trust, I feel, in a lot of people, and definitely in myself, most importantly. And so I think when it came to like going after a goal or a passion in my life, I just wanted to, I didn't know who to trust, and I just wanted it to be fully reliable on myself for whatever happened, positive or negative. So, but you could do it, anyone that's there and wants to do any of this, like you could totally do it. It is not going to be easy. You will get a lot of no's. I mean, I feel like this is stuff you could just go on Google or YouTube. Just type in and you could see someone talking about the same thing I am, It's like, if you start to see this pattern in your life and people are saying these things, you're starting to research what you're really into and really want to go after, but not yet ready to make the leap. And you hear a lot of people talking about the stuff that I'm talking about. As far as people are going to say, no, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to go after it, get comfortable getting uncomfortable, whatever it is. And you should start to have an understanding that throughout all these different journeys of life and these people with different experiences, they're all saying, they'll have one thing in common, you know? And if that's the truth in all those stories, like, love the fact that that's what it's going to take, you know? And that's what's going to separate you from everyone else. Like, that's super, like, that itself is super motivational. And I think I liked that mindset when starting music, because I came from training and snowboarding. It was just like train, hike the mountain, hike the 20,000 foot mountain, you know, and then go to sleep, eat healthy, It's like over and over, rinse and repeat. So I just took that mentality, and that's why I said to anybody before, I've trained myself very military mentality. My parents aren't in the military, but very just get this done. This is what has to be. But there's a line with that. I totally feel. You know, it's really not a line. It's just balance. It's just balance. If you're going to be like that and treat yourself that way, there has to be something, you know, that like you're feeling good about. So anyways, I had tried over and over. I had gone back and forth from while making music to then hanging out with the same people, places, and things, and then getting caught up with the same things, and then bouncing back to the same issues that I was having in and out of high school. And then I would go back to making music, and things would be good. And it went back and forth like that for a while, until I did another thing that I had never done before, and I moved, you know. I moved to California. It was like the first time I was like, I just don't want to go back home. The first time I was like, nothing is working. I exhausted every excuse that I had to like why things weren't happening. And I moved to California, and it was very life or death for me. Again, I said military mentality, but also it literally was for me. And I'm sure I'll talk on that topic at another point, but it literally was, but and figuratively was as well for me. So I moved, you know, and I was grateful and so fortunate that my sister was living out in California. She lived in a little tiny studio apartment. I posted some of the pictures before, and she let me sleep on the kitchen floor. So that's where like Able Heart really started. I used to just produce before, and then I was like, if I'm going to do this is life or death. I'm going to learn how to sing and write. Like, I have to do that. I already got the production. Like, I had the production down at that point. And I was like, I'm going to learn how to sing and write. So that's what I did. And here we are. Yeah, and then that's like a whole, I feel like that's a whole story for another time. But I could go over it a little bit. So I moved out to California. I created the number one thing when starting a new either lifestyle or new habit is routine. You know, so I was like, I'm going to go there. I'm going to run every single day. From this time to this time, then I'm going to sit down. I'm going to learn how to songwrite from this time to this time. And then I'm going to do like singing on like YouTube, learn how to sing videos from this time to this time. And then I would try and make a song. And then I would do that then put all that together and try and make a song every day. I would just try and do that. And it was horrible. It was the same, but I knew at that point, because I had experienced that with production, I knew at that point that that's what I was going to have to go through again. I was like, okay, I did this, and I just implemented and took that same method that I did with production, and I took that to singing and songwriting. So I did that for a while, and then maybe 3 years, maybe 3-4 years, another 3-4 years, and I was just about to leave. I was just about to leave California. Nothing was happening. I feel like many stories that you hear from many people that go out to Los Angeles. But I didn't want to give up. I was like, if I'm going to leave, like, and my parents obviously weren't able to financially support me living out there, and I couldn't financially support myself. So I had to go home, you know? And I was like, oh my gosh, like I got to do something. I was like, I got, like, not that I don't feel like I accomplished things here. I definitely put in the time, sweat, and energy. I did all that, but I need to feel like I did something. So wherever I have to go after California, wherever I have to go, I could look back and be like, oh, like that was a piece of me that I put out to the world. That's what I truly wanted to feel. So I met a buddy out here, out in California. Sorry, I'm not in California. I'm in Miami right now. I met a buddy in California when I first moved there. Super awesome. Shout out Johnny and shout out Alex. He referred me to Alex. Johnny referred me to Alex, and Alex filmed. And I was like, I just want to shoot a music video. He's like, all right, we'll get whatever together. And so I went to Google again and learned how to write a treatment, a music video treatment, scripted it out, got pictures, put the whole thing together, the storyboard. And then I sent it to Johnny, and Johnny sent it to Alex. And then he said, well, let me see if he'll do it. And I was like, well, at the time I was like, I don't have any money, like what can I get? What does he want? He heard the music and he was like, bro, I'll do it for free. This is his first thing. Like, I want to be a part of this. So shout out to Johnny and Alex. Forever grateful for that. So we went, put it all together, shot it, got an actress. Some of you guys know the video. The video is called Let Me Drown, if you're curious of the video that I'm talking about. But I will say before you go and watch it, it is completely opposite of everything that I put out now. Completely opposite. So I think it would be super unique, cool to experience if you guys have been around for a little bit, or maybe you're new and you see a lot of the positivity, manifestation, law of attraction, putting positive frequencies out there into the world, how much I'm on that wave, like how much that wave has truly changed my life. You could go back to the point of the story that I'm at now, go watch that video, Let Me Drown. And I'm truly not doing it for streams. Like, someone in here could validate what I'm saying. Go watch that video and see how, even though I was making music and doing all that stuff, look how different that was. Look how negative that was, right? But back to the story. I wanted to put out how I was feeling in the story that I had gone through in my life. So I wanted to portray that in film and put that out to the world. So I felt like that was a piece of me out there. Like I wasn't holding on to it anymore. So we filmed it, and then I got back and I had all the footage. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I didn't have a computer. I was like, I can't pay someone to edit this. I was like, and I was leaving like that week. I had to get the U-Haul together, everything. And I was like, I need to put this out now. Like I can't pay someone to edit this. So I was like, F it, in a positive way. I was like, F it. I just went into a lot of debt and took out a computer bought a computer that I didn't have the money for. And then it got delivered because my music computer couldn't handle anything video, which is, if anyone out there knows about video, you know how nice of a computer you need, or build, whatever. So that's what I was dealing with. So then I stayed up 3 nights straight and learned how to edit in Final Cut, which I still do today. Like that, any of the editing you guys see it on there, like I do all the editing. So I'm super grateful for that 3-night stint. Obviously there's been more time, sweat, and energy that's gone into it outside of the 3 months. But so I did that, stayed up, put it all together, and then threw it on YouTube. I threw it out on YouTube. I didn't expect it to go viral. It was just like I talk about now. This is funny because back then I didn't have this awareness, right? But I put it out. And at the time it had like 74 views, and I'm just whatever. I put it out and it felt like this freeing thing, right? After I put it out, maybe like a couple days go by. I don't even know the actual time frame. I put it out, there's 74 views, and someone at NBC and Universal sees it and reaches out and asks me to do a show that's filming at the end of the week. You can't even make that up. And then and in my head, I wasn't gonna do it, which is crazy. The show was called Songland. For anybody that's curious, you could also, I'm sure, see it somewhere. I posted a few videos about it. But in my head, I thought it was fake, and I wasn't gonna do it because if you look back at the video, if you would just watch the video, or when you go watch the video, that was my project at the time. That's where Able Heart as a project was at the time. So I was like, oh, if TV gets involved, like, I don't know how they're going to edit it, so I was very skeptical. I have no idea, but I think all of us, even anyone that's not in this industry, can understand how things could get edited. Like you've watched Dr. Phil, it's like they could edit things however they want. So I was a lot of fear. And I talk about there's a life beyond your wildest dreams, beyond on the other side of fear, because it's true. And I called my mom. I was like, oh, I don't know if this is real. And I don't think I'm going to do it because I don't want them to twist my story. Like, I don't know. What do they, I don't know. Like, so, and my mom, going back that week, my mom was like, yeah, you're not coming home. You're going to do it or you're not coming home. So shout out Mama Dukes again. And yeah, I had done it. And mind you, I was like, talking to them at NBC. I was like, did you guys even, like, did you watch the video? Did you listen to the music? Like, this is not TV friendly. Like, none of it was. And anybody that's seen what I'm talking about will know exactly. They'd have the same feeling. They'd be like, oh yeah, it doesn't make sense. But someone out there, and I ended up meeting him later on season 2, but someone out there resonated with the story and what I was putting out, what, like, I felt like I had gone through in life, and reached out, and thought I would be great for the show. So partially half because of Mama Dukes and partially stepping into the other side of fear, because in reality I could have just said, no, I'm not going to do it, because I did that, especially snowboard competitions, tons of things that really could have taken me to the next level in life. My mom would always be like, just do it. And I would say, no. But I think it was that, all of those parallels, before I was even really aware of this, like manifestation and putting things out into the universe and law of attraction, the RAS, reticular activating system, before I was even aware of any of this, I think that's, it all came down to that moment. I was like, oh my gosh, all these things just lined up, and I put it out there, and I have to say yes. I was like, where else am I going to go? So, like, at the end of the week, they put me up in the hotel, and they started filming. Long story short, you guys could go watch the show. It's season 4. Anyone that doesn't know, also, it's season 1, episode 4. And my number, my whole life has been 14. My birthday is 7/14. 7 and 7 is 14. And then it happened to be on episode 1, season 4. So 1/4. Which is amazing for anyone that does know what I'm talking about. It has heard this story before. You can't make that stuff up. So that had happened, and I went to go film, and I didn't know what to expect when filming. And I could go into the whole show experience is a totally different topic, but I'll try and, like, sum it up, and maybe in another video I'll break it down a bit more. But yeah, I didn't know what to expect, like literally nothing. But all I knew is that I was completely scared out of my mind. Every aspect of filming that and being there was everything that I feared in life. And also, as well, it's like, well, if this doesn't work out, it's like a 50-50 shot. Like, you work your whole life up into that point for something, and then it's like you're with the best people in that business, and they're either going to be like, yeah, you're one of us, or you're not. So, like, I feel like there was so much weight behind that too. It's like, well, I was like, I almost didn't want to know, but I believed. I mean, I think it's just what it came down to. Like, I already knew. And so when I went through it, I kept saying throughout that experience, I already won. Like, anytime I would do something, the people that I was meeting, I was like, I already won. I kept saying that. I was like, I already won. Like, I'm not even talking about, like, the final result. Like, I already won. The people, the relationships, the things that I learned while being there, I was like, I already won. And then I won. Like, how can you make that? You can't make that up. Right before I won, too, again, I briefly touched on 14 being, like, I don't know if it's a spirit number or whatever it is, but it's guided my whole life, I swear. I looked up right before I went in to find the final results. You go sing and do all that stuff on stage. I looked up in the sky, and I have a picture. I showed it. Someone could validate this. I've showed it before on one of the social platforms. But right before I look up, there's clouds. Literally looks like someone with the airplane wrote it. It says 14 now. Right before I walked in, and I found out that I won. In the clouds, it said 14 NOW. That means like how I perceived it is everything up until this point, like the 14 is now. Like all the things that you've been following, being in alignment of. And again, I wasn't like super hyper aware of the stuff that I speak on now. But those little subtle signs, and I started crying. I cried so much on that show. I cried so much, but you know, we're just all about being transparent and open. And I know that fears of what other people think have held me back the most in life. So what I really care about is helping as many people as possible, and through my story and things that I've experienced, in hopes that they can take something from it, you know, and it helps them push them forward through whatever they're going through or experiencing. Or at least whatever I say is entertaining, you know, even if it's a piece of content or some music that's nice to listen to. But at the end of the day, that's what I do feel my purpose is. I feel like that's where I'll stop the story. There's a lot more to it. I feel like that's not even really... That's kind of like where it just begins, which is crazy to me. But anyways, if someone's telling you can't do something, don't believe it. I posted a video the other day saying really the real thing is don't tell you can't do anything, because that's the real one that's going to hold you back. You know, so I'm here to tell you, I don't need to know you. I don't need to have a conversation with you to tell you that you're meant for more than you could possibly imagine. That's just a given. But it is on us, it is on you to like figure out what that's going to be and making that step. It's not, chances are it's going to be the hard step and the hard call and the unknown of all of it. It's what it's going to be. But I could tell you from my experience, stepping into that other side, the other side of fear, has always been a life beyond my wildest dreams. Has always been an experience beyond my wildest dreams. I couldn't even, like I said a few times throughout this story, I can't even make that up. I couldn't even, if it's always going to be beyond my wildest dreams, I could sit here and be like, this is exactly how I want it, you know? I'm going to build this dream, and this is how it's going to be. It's always bigger than that. Oh, he knows. You hear how he knows. I'm telling you, universe is a real thing. I swear, we're in a simulation. We're in a video game. But anyways, besides the point, I hope someone got something from anything that I said. If not, you were able to hear a little bit more of my story, and I'll touch on some more from after that happened to moving forward, because I feel like that's really where it starts. But I could talk about that on another video. But I love you guys. I'm gonna pop. I'm popping off. Ow, my leg. I love you. Bye.